social nonsense.
We did not, repeat, did not trade weapons or anything else for hostages, nor will we.
Read my lips.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
That the Iraqi regime continues to possess and conceal some of the most lethal weapons ever devised.
If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan, period.
With your host, Matt Stevens.
Hello, and welcome to Social Nonsense. I'm, of course, your host, Matt Stevens. You can always follow me on the Twitter at TheMattShow365. You can also do the same on Facebook. We got a lot to get to today. It was a very busy weekend. We didn't do a show last week because of 4th of July. I had to go out and celebrate Pappy Stevens' birthday, so good time there. And, things are, everyone's in recess. It's vacation time for our government, right? Nobody wants to work. Supreme Court's done till October. But we got a lot to do because Trump was in Europe, and that's always fun, right? It's always fun when our president goes to Europe because it just makes you sad because you just see how just behind the curve we are at this point, right? But more so than him, and we're going to get a lot to. We got the rise of the bills limiting rights for LGBTQ community. It's insane, and they're doing the same thing they did with abortions. That's how they're doing it. Kentucky has passed a law that they're going to allow the teaching of the Bible in a public school. The Rock might run for president. Oh, Jesus. A girl who, I don't like to use the word stupid because I think the word stupid is special, right? Not people aren't just simply stupid, right? So I'm going to say that she's ignorant, an ignorant girl, right? This ignorant girl went to a baseball game and, ignorant things happened. And then she got destroyed on it on Twitter. And the irony of the whole thing is better that nobody even noticed. But, what are you going to do? So we begin with the Trump bunch, right? The people who now run our government. It's not people we've elected or people that's been appointed. It's Trump's kids who now run Trump Industries, apparently, and help make decisions in our government. Big decisions, like sitting in on meetings at the G20 or meeting with Russian lawyers or deciding that Qatar should be, bad things should happen to them because they didn't help fund my debt that I made on a stupid building on Fifth Avenue. The Trump kids are dominating our lives at this point, and it's because I don't know if he doesn't trust anybody else, if he doesn't like anybody else, if he doesn't care to be around anybody else. To be honest with you, I have no idea what the reason is, but they are everywhere, okay? They're everywhere. And now it's starting to come back and bite them in the ass because they don't understand how this works. We're not talking about seasoned politicians who understand these things. These are people who are doing this for the betterment of them. They're not worried about what happens to you as long as their backs get scratched, or else, you know what, let's put the barricade around Qatar. Or as long as our back gets scratched, we're not going to listen to what we have to hear about because we want to hear about things about Hillary Clinton. Who knows what happened to I'll say this. Donald Trump needs to learn how to phrase his tweets a little bit better because he got called out by The View today. And when you get called out by The View, well, you're doing something stupid. But we're going to start with Junior, and then we're going to hit on Ivanka, and then we're going to talk about Jared. Now, I know Jared's not his kid, but he's his son-in-law, so it's kind of like the same thing. Now, Trump Jr. made news this weekend. I'm sure as everybody knows at this point. We're not going to talk about the ins and outs of it, although I do want to talk about the legality of it. But the fact that he admitted that he met with a Russian lawyer who has ties to the Kremlin about other things, but the reason that he went to the meeting was because she said she had dirt on Hillary Clinton and all this other stuff. The meeting was apparently set up by some Russian pop star whose family is close to Putin, right? Okay, great. So they go meet. That was last year on June 9th, okay? So this comes out. The New York Times releases this on Saturday, I believe, was when it first came out. And Donald Trump Jr. comes out And he says that we talked to her, but it was about this abortion thing. We primarily discussed a program about the adoption of Russian children that was active and popular with American families years ago and was since ended by the Russian government. But it was not a campaign issue at the time, and there was no follow-up. That's what he said on Saturday. Right? Okay, fine. Okay. Right? Then, this is on Sunday. Obviously, no, this is today. So he comes out yesterday and admits that the reason he went to the meeting, right? The reason he went to the meeting was because this woman said she had dirt, or she had stuff on the Democratic Party being hacked and all this other stuff. This is why he goes. And then he tweets out today, it's just the foot and mouth disease is unbelievable because he just keeps going. Obviously, I'm the first person on a campaign to ever take a meeting to hear about an opponent. Went nowhere, but had to listen. No inconsistencies in statements, meeting ended up being primarily about adoptions. In response to further cues, I simply provided more details. Now, here's the problem with this. First of all, you came out first and you said it was just about adoptions. We later learned that was true. That even though you said that she gave you nothing, the pretense for the meeting was that you were going to get stuff on Hillary Clinton. That was the reason you met with these people. That was the reason. You didn't meet with them because of the other stuff. You met with her because they said to you, the go-between, the Russian pop star with ties to Putin's family, who called you through a can connected to a string from across the street. And you went on the pretense that you were going to get dirt on somebody else. And you say, went nowhere, but had to listen. No, you didn't, Donald Trump Jr. And I'm going to say this now, and then we'll get to the rest of it. And this is going to be my little high horse moment here, but you don't have to. When a foreign government or somebody you know who has ties to a foreign government, she doesn't work for Russia, at least as far as I know. I mean, she's a lawyer with Russian ties. That's what you hear from everybody who talks about her. But still, when that person contacts you and says, we have dirt on Hillary Clinton, you tell the NSA, the FBI, the CIA. That's who you tell. And you tell Hillary Clinton because this is a foreign power. This isn't, somebody who left the Hillary campaign who's now giving you stuff. This isn't that. This isn't politics. This is a foreign government screwing with our elections. And you had to hear it. You had to listen. But that's because you're a person with a low moral compass. In fact, I'm not even sure you know what a moral compass is. You hear that and you think, oh, I'm going to get dirt on this person. I'm going to make it so we win with the dirt I get from this person about this other person. Where I think, man, we should probably tell somebody that foreign people, nationals with ties to Russian government are telling us they have dirt on one of our candidates. And then it starts to unravel, right? Right? Then it starts to unravel. So we see more and more stuff come out. Now, this isn't like new information. It's just stuff that makes it all seem weird. Everything seems to sort of fit. We just don't have the smoking gun, so to speak, that is an actual just flat proof. Olbermann, and I'm not a huge Olbermann guy, but whatever. He does some good work. He's a little highfalutin for me, but whatever. He tweets out a Donald Trump tweet from 6/9/16 at 4:40 p.m. that says, how long did it take your staff of 823 people to think that up? And where are your 30,000 emails that you deleted? And this is what Olbermann tweeted. Trump's very first tweet about HRC's missing 33,000 emails appears to be from 6/9/16 after Manafort, Kushner, Don Jr. met with Russians. I mean, I'm not saying it happened, but he was in Trump Tower that day. Okay, that was the same day that you saw a bunch of donors, and this is Seth Abramson. Okay, Seth Abramson. He's an attorney professor. Now this is speculation, but just listen to it. Just listen because it makes sense. Breaking. Trump was in NYC on June 9th. 26th meeting a 2016 meeting with Priebus, Christie, Lewandowski, and Manafort. He knew, folks. Go down. So Trump was at Trump Tower for some part of the day in question and met with one of the people who was in a room with a Russian agent. Manafort to the press on June 9th, 2016. Quote, "We don't need as much money as people think to beat Clinton," end quote. That takes on new meaning now. And then two more. I think we'll soon find the Russian agent who met with Trump Jr., Manafort, and Kushner did give them Clinton intel, and they did use it. And then finally, the chance that Trump did not know about a meeting his sons and campaign manager were having in this building while he was there is zero. And that's true. You can look, we can speculate, we can talk all day long, but there is no friggin' way that Donald Trump did not know that a Russian person called them and said they had dirt on Hillary Clinton, that Trump Jr., Manafort, and Priebus and Kushner just did this all by themselves without telling him? Are you out of your minds? Now, I don't know what she gave them. Nobody knows what she gave them. Nobody does. Because they say it was nothing. They say it was just, she came in and she used it to trick them, to get them there to talk about this abortion thing that they want, to get abortions, I guess, Americans to be able to, not abortions, adoptions. Sorry. I keep saying abortions. We're going to talk about that. Oh, God. Adoptions, okay? Adoptions. Russian adoption thing. Sorry. And that ended up being the reason. But it's all too neat. It's all too simple. It's all right there in front of you. Is it possible that all these things are just some sort of weird confluence of events that have just created some just sort of random wiggle in the timeline? Yeah, of course. Anything is possible. But let's be fair. On the same day that Trump is in Trump Tower, this is about 2 weeks after he had gotten the nomination, right? Now, they had just released Hillary Clinton's testimony, I believe, that day. And I think that was the day that Obama, it was around the time Obama had endorsed her. And there's a couple things that happened that week. I think I read that. That was in one of the Post articles about it. So all this happens on basically one day. This person comes in. Trump is tweeting about it, maybe before we knew. I don't know the timeline of that. But to tell me that he's meeting with donors, right? Manafort says we don't need as much money as you think because maybe he knows something that we don't. And he did. And maybe that was private information about Hillary Clinton that they used. And let me say this, because this is where we're going to get into it. This is a problem for Donald Trump Jr. He has essentially broken the law. Now, when you hear it, you're going to say, well, Matt, that just sounds weird. And it does sound weird. But he is kind of breaking the law. Okay? The law governing foreign contributions to U.S. campaigns. And there are two passages. This is according to Vox. And it's not according to Vox. They just did the work of finding a little section that I needed. And so this is not their interpretation. These are the words. A foreign national shall not, directly or indirectly, make a contribution or a donation of money or other thing of value or expressly or impliedly promise to make a contribution or a donation in connection with any federal, state, or local election. Now, I know what you're thinking. Matt, it doesn't say there that they can't accept information or other thing of value. In a presidential campaign, what's more valuable than information? Especially bad information about your opponent. Seriously. They already said money. So if you take money away from it, right? If you just take money out of the equation, what's the next most important thing? It's information. And that's what that woman promised. She promised information. He didn't go there. See, now here's where he screwed up. He should have said, we took a meeting with this Russian woman because she wanted to talk about this adoption thing with the Russian government, the United States government. And so we decided to take it because it has to do with children. And while we were there, she offered me information about Hillary Clinton. And I said, no, I don't want to hear any of that. If he would have said that, nobody would have said a thing. But he didn't. He said, we went there because we wanted to hear the crap about Hillary Clinton. That is accepting from a foreign national a thing of value which is a contribution to a donation with connections to a federal election. And then, here's the better part. Because he says he knew that's why he went. Because if he had, now again, he would have been breaking the law, even if the scenario that I set up, if he would have listened to what she had to say, he would have still broken the first law because that's accepting it, right? So he could have still gone under the pretense of, I didn't know what I was going there for except for this adoption thing, and she attacked me with that. If he doesn't listen, he's free, right? But the problem is he said he went because. And so he's breaking this part. To the extent you're using the resources of a foreign country to run your campaign, that's an illegal campaign contribution, okay? So you can't use the foreign resource, all right? A solicitation is an oral or written communication that, construed as reasonably understood in the context in which it's made, contains a clear message asking, requesting, or recommending that another person make a contribution, donation, transfer of funds, or otherwise provide anything of value. He went there explicitly to solicit information about Hillary Clinton. He has broken this law. His tweets back it up. He went there knowing full well that a foreign national who is not a member of the foreign national was going to give him information about Hillary Clinton. He went there for those reasons. And so that's the first Trump thing that we learned this weekend. Well, it's not the first thing we learned, but it's the most important thing we learned, because we learned that it's true and that they've been lying all along, because they've always said that they never met with any Russians about Hillary Clinton stuff. They've always said that from the beginning, and this just proves that it's untrue. It is untrue, and that everything they've set up to this point is at least basis for saying none of it is true. Because everything they said so far has been proven false, or pretty much everything they've been saying so far. Not to mention the fact that to help stem the tide of this and other nonsense that's happening, you have you have President Trump. you have saying the word makes my head hurt, but you have President Trump talking about working with Putin on a cybersecurity task force so that the next election doesn't get hacked. You can't make it up. You can't. So here's the thing, folks. Out of both sides of their mouths, as usual. Out of one side, his son is first in line to go to a meeting that has information that was obtained illegally by this person about somebody else, his father's opponent. He wants to go see them. Donald Trump wants to work with the people who got this information so this woman could then approach Trump Jr. about it. He wants to work with those people to stop it from happening again. But he won't fess up to the fact that Russia did it. Putin said he didn't do it. Trump just believed him. He just believed him. Trump won't believe anything that freaking CNN, MSNBC, anything but Fox News says is true. But when Putin said that Russia was not involved, nope, yep, I believe you. You're good. And folks, when people like Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham are calling you crazy for wanting to do a cybersecurity team with Putin, you're the only person. This isn't me. This isn't me. Okay? Lindsey Graham said this on Meet the Press. This is Lindsey Graham. This isn't me, Lindsey Graham. He is literally the only person I know of who doesn't believe Russia attacked their election in 2016. Marco Rubio said partnering with Putin on a cybersecurity unit is akin to partnering with Assad on a chemical weapons unit. Look at Marco being hysterical. But do you see? He's so round the bend on this Russia thing that he's starting to get pushback on it because it's ridiculous. He is the only person in this country. Well, that's not true. There are other minions. And let me just debunk this right now. Let me just debunk anything because I saw a lot of this over the weekend, and I have a feeling it's the new troll talking point. We are not investigating Russians coming into the country and making actual votes. That's not what we're investigating. We're not investigating voter fraud that way. We're investigating that the Trump campaign colluded with Russians to hack the DNC and get information about Hillary Clinton and the Democrats to win the election. We're not talking about Russians invading our country and voting in our elections. So stop with that because it's nonsense and nobody believes it. But we're off the rails, guys, with this Russia thing. And then, oh, God. And then you see the pictures of the G20 meetings. And Ivanka is there in the G20 meetings. And look, right? I get it. But you said that when you left your company, when you became president, you said that your kids were going to run the company and that you wouldn't run the company, your kids are going to run it. The problem is your kids are now involved in your everyday life as president. So basically your company is now the presidency of the United States along with Trump Industries. And to say that, and this is the best part because he goes on to try and make it like Angela Merkel is the authority on this. When I left the conference room for a short meeting with Japan and other countries, I asked Ivanka to hold seat. Very standard. Angela M. agrees. Okay. Yeah. Yes. There are. We're not saying that you can be in 7 places at once, Donald. That's not what people are talking about. They're talking about is where is your vice president? Where's your secretary of state? Where are other cabinet members who would be more qualified? Well, I'm not sure your cabinet members would be, but at least they were confirmed by the Senate to be sitting in on these meetings. They would be more qualified to do the job than she is. She is a shoe designer. She is an industry woman. For her to sit on meetings like this is insane. It's insane. We're not saying that you can't have somebody sit in your seat. And that's what Angela Merkel is saying, is that an appropriate person to fill your seat is what is needed in that situation. What do you think she can add to these conversations when they're talking about this stuff? What do you think she can add to this stuff? And why is she there? We didn't elect her. Why are they still there? And then he comes out and I mean, folks, it's amazing. I don't know. This one, I don't know if it's on purpose. It doesn't seem to be. I usually give him credit for stuff like this because I think he's brilliant at misdirection and whatnot. Okay. But he then tweeted out, if Chelsea Clinton were asked to hold the seat for her mother as her mother gave our country away, the fake news would say Chelsea for president. Now, here's the problem with this tweet. If you want to read it again, if Chelsea Clinton were asked to hold the seat for her mother as her mother gave our country away, the fake news media would say Chelsea for president. Now, as the ladies on The View pointed out this morning, now I didn't see it on it. I saw that they did that. I don't watch The View. I said it when I read it. I said, really? So you're saying you're giving our country away? Is that what you're saying? You're saying that while you were giving our country away, it's okay that Ivanka sat in your seat because if Hillary Clinton was there giving our country away, we would have cheered the fact that Chelsea Clinton was there? You got to remember one thing above all there, Mr. Trump. You got to remember one thing about Twitter. It's 142 characters. 142 characters. This is very important.
Phrasing. Boom!
Phrasing. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, I was saying that her mother would be giving away the country, not mine. But that's not how it reads. Always remember, when you're talking about Twitter.
Phrasing. Boom!
But that's making light of the broader point here, which is his kids are still around. They're still here, and they're not leaving. They're sitting in on major meetings. And And when you hear the next part of this, which is the final part of it, which is the Jared Kushner part of it, it's going to make you even think worse of what is happening behind these closed doors. Now, if you know anything about Jared Kushner, you know that he comes from money. Shockingly enough, that a person of money would marry into the Trump family. But his parents are the big real estate people in New York City. And back, I believe it was in 2006 or 2007, he purchased a building at 666 Fifth Avenue. Why you would purchase the Devil's Building, I don't know. But he did, and it's been a huge money drain on him, so much so that he's had to go to different countries and ask for money, including Qatar. Qatar. I always thought it's Qatar. People say it's Qatar. I don't really know. I don't really care. So, as you know, there's an ongoing blockade. It's led by Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and it's Egypt and Bahrain. Now, this is all according to The Intercept. This is Ben Walsh, Ryan Grimm, Clayton Swisher, okay? This is all according to them, and they're awesome reporting on this. Now, they're talking about, so he is trying to find money to finance this building and even tear it down and build something else there, like luxury condos or something like that. Okay, it's mortgaged to the teeth, I guess, and the amount of money because they sold all the retail space to help pay for some other stuff that they only have the office space, which doesn't help cover the amount of debt that they're in, and yada, yada, yada. Rich people problems, rich people problems, rich people problems. But because he has rich people problems, he has to go to people who are richer than him. And one of the people he went to was the major, he's the richest guy in Qatar, Sheikh Hamad bin Hassim Al Thani. They call him HBJ for short, and so we'll do the same. Now, he was looking for about $500 million from HBJ, okay? And there are disparaging stories about what the details of that deal was. One says that he'll give him the $500 if he can help finance the rest. One said that he gets it essentially no matter what, and so we don't really know that part of it. Okay, I would believe that this guy isn't stupid enough to know that this project is a disaster. Everybody knows this project is a disaster. It's literally sucking the Kushner Corporation dry. Okay. And so basically, to make a long story short, Jared Kushner is asking this guy for money for his own company, right? Now, this apparently all started before Trump was the nominee. The negotiations for this started last year before he was the nominee and have continued up until recently when the deal, I guess, was called off. Now, the problem with that is that after it was called off, there was a meeting with all of those countries, including Qatar, and that supposedly went well. And then Trump had a meeting with all of them. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to just read it directly from the story so you get the idea, okay? The crisis dates to May, when President Trump visited Saudi Arabia and met with the regional leaders there, laying his hands on the now famous orb. The Emir of Qatar met with Saudi King Salman, a high-level Qatari source told The Intercept, and it went well. Quote, the Emir was in Jeddah before the summit, had a meeting with King Salman. King Salman did not bring up any subject about differences in Qatar, he said. Quote, after the summit, the Saudis and the Emirates, they thought, after signing all these contracts, they can have the upper hand in the region, and they don't want any country not to be in the same line. Okay? Now, for whatever the reasoning, on June 5th, a diplomatic crisis broke out as Saudi Arabia and the UAE, along with Egypt and Bahrain, downgraded ties with Qatar, citing Qatar's funding of terrorist organizations. Weeks earlier, the same countries blocked a number of Qatar-backed media outlets, citing derogatory public comments by the Emir, which Qatar insisted was fabricated and the result of a hack. And then the president took to Twitter, saying, during my recent trip to the Middle East, I stated that there can no longer be funding of radical ideology. Leaders pointed to Qatar, look. Okay? So good to see the Saudi Arabia visit with the king and 50 countries already paying off. They said they would take a hard line on funding. Extremism in all reference was pointing to Qatar. Perhaps that will be the beginning of the end to the horror of terrorism. Now, you see the problem, right? You see the utter problem here? We have a president who is destroying a country who we'd never heard him basically. I don't remember him saying a whole lot about this country beforehand. But after they decide not to back Kushner's $500 million, all of a sudden Qatar is the worst country in the world at funding terrorists. They were okay a year and a half up until they said no with their $500 million to fund 666 Fifth Avenue. They were okay with it then. But now that they're not giving that money, they're the worldwide leader in funding of terrorism, and they need to be destroyed. And apparently, Jared Kushner has taken a really hard line against this. Okay? So you see the bleed has already begun. Now, we know it's been going on for a long time, but this is like artery bleeding right now. The bleeding over of industry and nonsense is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You have Ivanka sitting in on G20 meetings. You have Kushner dealing with countries that his father-in-law says are some of the biggest contributors to terrorism, and he's trying to swoon them for $500 million. You have Trump Jr. going to meetings with foreign nationals, knowing that they have information that they obtained illegally on Hillary Clinton, and then tweeting about it as if he's proud to do it. I don't know where it ends. I don't know how it ends. I don't know, to be honest with you, because I fear, what I fear the most out of all of this is that the tracks are covered so well that we always know, but we never really find out. You know what I mean? It's sort of like the OJ killing. Like, we all pretty much know that OJ did it, but we don't really have the absolute proof that he did it, except we all know that he did. And that's what's going on here. We all know they did it. I just don't know if we'll ever find out that they actually did. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a little bit about how Republicans do things and how they get things done when the Supreme Court strikes against them, okay? We know that back in the day when they said abortion should be legal, that since then they've been systematically trying to make it illegal without it being illegal. Well, now they're trying to do the same thing with the LGBTQ community, okay? Now, we all know that compared to, say, 10, 15 years ago, the way that we look at the gays and lesbians and the way we look at the community as a whole, now, not for me, I never understood it, but whatever. And I don't mean understood it in a bad way. I'm saying I never understood why you cared. I don't understand. Just don't care. If you don't like gay people, don't be gay. I don't care. But anyway, so now we're seeing, so what they do is, so they go after, so the Supreme Court says, you know what? Gay marriage is legal, right? Screw it. Gay marriage is legal. It's ridiculous. Equal protection, the 14th Amendment, the whole thing. Gay marriage is legal, right? And so then, so that Republicans have lost, right? You think everyone's dancing in the streets, we're all excited, everyone's going crazy, and then you realize that what they're doing is when they run all these state houses, they then go through the back door. The abortion tact, as I like to call it, okay? And so what they've been doing is that since, I believe it's 2013 is when the ACLU started keeping track of this. Since 2013, legislatures have introduced 348 bills, 23 of which became laws. Now, they do this in many ways. It's never one way, right? They do the bathroom bills where you have to go into a bathroom of the sex that is on your birth certificate, right? They do the religious freedom bills, right? They do those. So it's bigotry. It's legal bigotry wrapped inside religious freedom, right? So if you put a religious face on it, it's okay to be a bigot. And so they pass things saying that people who work in federal offices don't have to follow federal law based on their religion. So like that woman who kept denying all the marriage licenses, people will continue to be allowed to do that in these states, going against federal law, going against what the Supreme Court wanted and said because of their religious beliefs. The bathroom bills are the ones that have gotten the most traction. They're the ones that have gotten the most passed, I believe. But no, they also are doing it in another way too. They're doing it from an adoption sense, right? So you can get married, but we're going to make it so you can't adopt a kid. We're going to make it so that you can't help a kid who's in foster care. We're not going to be doing that, okay? And that's what they do. See, they know that they can't attack gay marriage. So what they're going to do is they're going to attack every way around it and make it almost impossible for gay people to get married. It's like exactly what they did with the abortion thing. So they can't make abortions illegal. So what they do is they get rid of all the clinics by making them say that if you receive any money for abortion or if you do abortions here, that you have to have a doctor who has rights at the hospital. But no hospital is going to give those rights because abortion is nobody wants to be affiliated with a hospital that does abortions, right? The backwards way. They try to defund Planned Parenthood by lying and saying that tax dollars pay for abortions, which they do not. But that's how they do it. They backdoor you, and that's how they're doing it with here, okay? So you have the famous one in North Carolina, but they're not the worst. Texas is the worst. Texas has introduced the most bills at 36. Now Virginia has passed the most at 4, which kind of surprises me, but when you get to the southern and western part of Virginia, it gets a little rednecky. But there's a lot of states that are doing this. And so knowing that they lost the, I don't want to say war, they're still fighting the war. We thought we won the war when the Supreme Court said that gay marriage is legal and should be treated like everything else. And so what they do is because they fear people who aren't like them or people who might be like them and they don't want to be like, they decide to make laws limiting you in other ways. Laws that may not have been reached the Supreme Court yet, or laws that may have been sort of upheld by the Supreme Court with sort of certain changes that you'll never find out. Like the bathroom bills, like the adoption bills, okay? Like the religious freedom bills that they wrap in nonsense. So look in your state and be vigilant and be careful. But this is a message. This right here, this Washington Post article, let me get the name of the author because this is a great article. Go read it. They have graphs and charts. It's a whole thing. And they break it down number by number. I'm not going to do that because that's not what it's not what's important. It's not the number. It's the fact that this is happening. It's the fact that we're seeing laws passed to protect religious freedom wrapped in bigotry. Being able to cite religion so that you don't have to help somebody is bigotry. It might be religious bigotry, but it's bigotry nonetheless. It was written by Everdeen Mason, Aaron Williams, and Kennedy Elliott. It's from June 29th, 2017. The dramatic rise in state efforts to limit LGBT rights. And it's happening right in front of us. The same with it's been happening with abortion for years. Go try and find a place that'll do an abortion in Texas. You probably won't be able to do it, or else you're going to have to drive really, 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 really far. The same things are happening. Now, will they get the same kind of traction? Maybe not, because the last poll I read was like 65% favor gay marriage as being legal. And so maybe those things will go away. But the broader point here is this, and this is what the DNC needs to learn. The most of the governing that hurts us on a day-to-day life happens on a state level. The governing that really, really affects us. The governing that really because states' rights can obviously go against federal law. We've seen that with marijuana. We've seen it with guns. We've seen it with a lot of things. And so maybe those things might not be legal on a federal level, but they might be legal on a state level. And so you have to be vigilant and win these places back and turn these things over. They're even making bills that make it illegal in your section of your state, say your county or whatever, they're making it illegal to go against what the state says. So if you say live in a college town in a very red state and you don't want to be part of the bathroom bill thing, your city legislator, your city council can't pass a bill going against the state's law. And that's how they get you. That's how they always get you. So be vigilant. But more importantly, the DNC needs to be vigilant about this. It's time. 50 states is clearly within reach. And the only way to stop things like this happening, the only way to stop the limiting of abortion rights, the only way to stop the limiting of LGBTQ rights, the only way to stem the tide of this absolute friggin' and racial equality, the only way to stem this crap is to win from the ground up. The problem with Democrats is they only want to win from the top down. You have to win from the ground up. Kentucky's in the news, and you know that can't ever be good because, you know, it's Kentucky, so what the hell? Okay, so this went into effect on Thursday. It will allow Bible courses to be taught in public schools, okay? Now, this is from an NBC, this is from The Hill, right? So, look, this is what they're saying about it. Right now, the language of the bill is very vague, and the Kentucky Department of Education has not yet put together a curriculum. And this is Amber Duke of the Kentucky American Civil Liberties Union. The concern, though, is that you could have a curriculum that is constitutional, and you could be delivered in a manner that is not constitutional. Okay? The Bible class is meant to, quote, establish an elective social studies course on the Hebrew Scriptures, Old Testament of the Bible, New Testament, or combination of the Hebrew Scriptures and the New Testament of the Bible. This is public money going to something that should happen in a church. This is public money going to teaching the Bible. It's called religious studies, guys. The courses exist all over the place. And if you're going to do this, at least say you're going to talk about other religions. At least make it a religious studies course and maybe teach people some things about Islam and Buddhism and Catholicism and Christianity because I don't think they really know. Or one of the other bajillion religions that exists in the world. Make it a religious studies course. But the idea that see, because here's the problem, and this is where this is going to fail. This is where the Supreme Court is going to kill this bill. Okay? You picked a religion. You can't pick a religion. If you want to teach a religious studies course in public school, I have no problem with that. But it has to be taught by somebody who is not of a religion. It has to be taught by somebody who's not going to teach one religion is better than the other. It has to be taught by somebody who's just going to teach religion because this is the public school. This isn't a private school. This isn't a Catholic school. This is a public school. And my tax dollars, if you don't want your tax dollars going to abortion, I don't want my tax dollars going to teaching the Bible. I swear to God, I feel like our government for the last, say, 30 years has been in a cha-cha. You know, you take a couple steps forward, then you take a couple steps back, and then you take a couple steps forward, and then you take a couple steps back, and then a couple steps forward. I feel like right now we're moving just backwards. That's all we do is just move backwards. Because of crap like this. A new poll came out today that the majority of Republicans don't think a college education is good or you need one. I'm not saying you do need one. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. But the fact that you don't think that higher education is important is what's totally wrong with this country. And by the way, that poll right there proves that what Republicans have been doing for the last, say, since 1964 has worked. It took a long time. It's like the longest con ever, but it worked. They've done it. They've successfully made a class of people that will vote for them nonstop who fear education, who fear science, and who think that everybody who doesn't think like them is wrong and everything they say is right. And this is just the next step. Now we start teaching Bible in public schools. Great. Soon we'll have public prayer. Then we'll have things on the streets. And then on the public lands, the 10 Commandments. And then we're a Christian nation. And then if you're not a Christian, you will be persecuted. And that's the only way that can end. Seriously. Because again, I don't know how many times I have to say it. You can't have freedom of religion when you are a religious country. Your government has to be atheist, or else you can't have actual freedom of religion. But Christians don't care about that because they know when the time comes, it's going to be freedom of religion for them, just not for anybody else. Okay. A little water for this because we're going to talk about The Rock right now. And look, we have to stop, okay? We have to stop. I understand that Donald Trump won the presidency. I understand everybody's excited about this. I do. I get it. I really do. I honestly get it, okay? But we have to stop making celebrity and presidential leadership the same thing. We have to stop equating wealth and power with the ability to lead a country. We have to stop making those things the same thing because they're not, okay? Now, he didn't do this. I'm not saying he did. Somebody, who was it? Kenton Tilford, under a West Virginia address, has filed a campaign committee, Run the Rock 2020. Now, that sounds to me like that's a campaign to get him to run for president. But even still, it's a bad idea. What are you going to do? You're going to take The Rock off the set of fucking Fast and Furious 27? What are you going to do? And you're going to put him in the presidency to do what? Look, I'm no fan of Reagan. I'm not. I swear to God, I think he's one of the worst presidents we've ever had, especially if you're in the middle class. And if you don't believe it, just go look. Look at when he came in and when he left and where the tax rates were. Just look. But the man was at least governor of California before he became president. This guy's never done anything. Forget about his shows on TV and that he's a wrestler. He's never done anything like that. We can't have it. Look, I'm not saying it has to be a career politician, but it has to be somebody who knows how it works, who knows how it goes, who knows how things are done. One of the biggest problems we're having right now is the fact that he doesn't understand procedure. He doesn't understand protocol. And these things are in place for a reason. They're in place because if you don't have procedure, it's anarchy. It's anarchy. And if you don't have procedure, then the minority voice gets swallowed up by the majority. And that goes against everything we are as a country. Running The Rock for president plays exactly into the hands of the people who wanted Trump to win and who wanted Ross Perot to win. These people aren't presidential because they're rich and famous. They're not presidential. That's not how presidential equates itself. And although The Rock would be a better human being as president than our current president, that is not a debatable. You can't debate that. Although that is true, it doesn't mean he would be a good president. It just doesn't mean that. You have to stop. You have to be able to have somebody who has empathy and who understands how our government works because it's complicated. And it's not something that just some guy who, is really good at he might give good rah-rah speeches, but he's not the president. If you want to have the next president and then have The Rock be his spokesperson, sure, fine, whatever. But in no way, shape, or form should The Rock or any other celebrity run for president of the United States or any other business person or whatever. Because they're not the same thing. Wealth and power are not the same as willingness and readiness to lead as president of the United States. On to Atlanta, where last week a young lady was taking in a Braves game, and we'll get to the irony of that in a moment. And, if you've ever been to a baseball game, when guys strike people out, they put K's up on the wall, right? Well, this particular pitcher had 3 strikeouts, so there were 3 K's up on the wall. And she's got a little picture of it with a WTF and 4 question marks and caricatures of her being grr and thug life written on a shirt. And this is Sonya K. And she tweets, really disappointed with the sign at the new Braves stadium. Definitely not okay, at Braves. She thought it was a sign for the KKK. So people tried to tell her. You do realize that that is the recorded number of strikeouts by the Braves pitcher, right? And so she replies to that. They should figure out a different way to record it because that's offensive. I mean, sure, it might be offensive for 3, but what happens when you get 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8? Then it's KKK. But the problem here isn't her stupidity. And let me rephrase that. Not stupidity, her ignorance. The problem isn't her ignorance because there are tons of ignorant people in the world. The problem is that our false outrage at stuff that we've been told we should be mad at is getting really, really thin. It's getting to the point now where we can't really do or say almost anything without somebody saying or doing something that they're offended by it. This is a person who made a big deal out of something that's been going on in the major leagues for almost 30 years in front of black players and Hispanic players. And they never said anything because they understand what it is. It's not a call for the KKK to come running. It's simply pointing out the amount of strikeouts that exist. But forget about even that for a second. And think of the irony of this person who is at an Atlanta Braves game where they do the tomahawk chop. And in case you don't know what the tomahawk chop is, it's where they go, oh. So she's okay with all of that. But the 3 Ks up on the wall is where she draws the line. The sheer gloriousness of that statement speaks for itself. And finally today, folks, because the world is not fun enough, the world is not enjoyable enough, the world is not even really awesome enough. For what is the batshit crazy pants thing of the day?
Yeah, man, yeah. It's the batshit crazy pants thing of the day. Groovy, man, yeah. Groovy. Thing of the day. Yeah. Thing of the day.
And our thing of the day is thanks to Frank Amedia. Amedia, Amedia. He is a religious person who he worked for Trump's campaign as the Christian policy liaison. And while he was on Jim Baker's show last week, he bragged about something that I'm just going to let you listen to. I'm not even going to tease it. I'm just going to let you listen.
Remember when they had the tsunami in Japan? They had the earthquake and the tsunami?
Yes.
And my wife wakes me up at 6:45 a.m. in the morning, and she says, you got to pray. I said, I pray all the time. Why are you waking me up? She said, our daughter, Carissa, is on the island of Kauai over in Hawaii. I said, what's she doing there? Her husband took her there for their anniversary, and the tsunami's headed there, and they said it's going to hit the shores in 15 minutes. And she just called, and she says, tell Dad I love him. They're taking us up in the rocks, and I don't know if I'm going to talk to you again. I said, what? I got up, and I said, which way's Hawaii? Now, remember, my hair's tossed. My wife turns me and says, it's that way. I said, are you sure? She goes, yes.
Okay, so here we are, right? So his wife comes in, wakes him up from a dead sleep at 6:45 in the morning, and he has to, not call somebody, not get on a plane and go there. Like, you have to start praying, okay? Because our daughter might die to a tsunami. So he jumps up. Point me to Hawaii, because I'm about to do some serious praying.
I said, if I be a man of God, the prophet of God, I command now that tsunami stop, that it cannot touch that Kauai. That is my inheritance. That is my child. And as the prophet of God, I command you to stop now.
Yes.
Wow.
I said, get her on the phone.
Yes.
She calls my daughter. She's
Amen.
climbing up the mountains, and I could, I said, honey, turn and look now. You don't need to climb anymore. She said, why? I said, just listen to me. Turn and look now. I said, look to the right. You will see an angel stirring in the waters. He will hold back the waters. The waters will pull back, and then they will recede and go the other way. She got it on video.
Okay, where's the video? I searched. If you had a video of an angel turning back a tsunami, wouldn't you release that video immediately on something? On some Christian YouTube, perhaps, or something like that? Wouldn't you release that video? These guys always say they got it on video. Where the hell is the video? Seriously, where's the video? I want to see the video of an angel turning back a tsunami because Frank Amadea said that you should because his daughter's in Kauai.
And the water stopped, and they went the other way. You want to hear the end of this one?
Yes.
You're going to laugh again. God laughs in heaven.
Yes.
So when I release the thing about Donald Trump, right, and I say he has a breaker anointing, don't you know that all of those publications that love to bash you and me and all of us that move out there, what do they say?
The truth-sayers.
The tsunami pastor says Trump has a breaker anointing. Well, guess what? I was right about the tsunami, and I was right about Trump. To God be the glory.
God be the glory. And this is what we're dealing with, folks. This is what we're dealing with on a daily basis. This guy who literally thinks that he woke up from a dead sleep. His daughter was in danger. He stood facing Hawaii, or at least what he thought was facing Hawaii, because he didn't know, and I'm not even sure his wife knew. I'm not even sure I would. Actually, I think I would know exactly, because New York's set up pretty easily for me to tell that. But that's besides the point. He then stood up and prayed.
I said, if I be a man of God, the prophet of God, I command now that tsunami stop, that it cannot touch that Kauai. That is my inheritance. That is my child. And as the prophet of God, I command you to stop now.
As a prophet of God, I command you to stop now. And that's what happened, guys. He wasn't there to see it, but he knew because he's a prophet of God. See, the scary thing about these people is that he actually does believe it. He actually believes that even though science can explain away every single time about why the tsunami didn't hit there, or should it even have hit there, or were they just evacuating people as a precaution and there was no real, danger at all. I don't know. I wasn't there. But I can tell you what didn't happen. I can tell you, because here's the thing, guys. You don't think there's always a prophet of God praying for something bad not to happen, and bad things happen all the time? You think God has anything to do with it? Do you? Because do you remember? Because here's the thing. As a Christian, you should know this, that when God threw us out of the Garden of Eden and gave us free will, he basically wiped his hands of us, and that you have a choice to either follow him or not, but he's not going to impart himself onto us anymore. He's done. You will live a life of pain and suffering. Unless you love him. But this guy's saying, and he believes with all of his might, that he, with the power of prayer.
I said, if I be a man of God, the prophet of God, I command now that tsunami stop, that it cannot touch that Kauai. That is my inheritance. That is my child. And as the prophet of God, I command you to stop now.
What about all the other kids who have died? What about all the other inheritances who have died when people have prayed for them to stop? See, this guy thinks he stopped a tsunami, and so he thinks that anything he does is right and good and just. And having that feeling is insane, first of all. But secondly, it's dangerous because this guy actually believes. He went on television and said it. Now, you can say it's all namby-pamby and nonsense, and it is, but he believes it. And that's the thing that scares the heck out of everybody, is that he believes it. He believes it. He believes he saved his daughter from a tsunami with the power of prayer. He turned back a tsunami with the power of prayer. He turned back a tsunami that killed thousands of people with the power of prayer. Where was his prayer when it was hitting Japan? Where were everybody's prayers when it hit Japan? Does God only listen to this guy? I hope not, because this guy's an idiot. And if God only listens to him, well, then I'm glad I don't believe in him, because then God's an idiot too. That's our show for you today. Thank you so much for listening. Every Monday night at 6:30, we do the social nonsense. We also do sports. There's no sports this week. Friday, we got Batshit Crazy Pants Super Show. And every Sunday night at 7 o'clock, we have the musical show, which is our Broadway-themed music show. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next Monday. Have a great week, everybody.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston. And so never more shall we see you again.